For me to talk. I would like to call upon our next speaker, Dr. Manjunath Bhatt sir, on the dais, who will be speaking on TERP anesthetic consideration. I would like to request our chairpersons to kindly introduce our speaker.
Good morning. Dr. Manjunath Bhatt is a professor and head in the Department of Anesthesiology, Karwar Institute of Medical Sciences. He was a member of the Scientific Committee for KISACON 2014 at STM Dharwad. He was a founder president of New ISA City branch at Uttar Kannada district. So he is the chairman of ISA sponsored National CME at Karwar in October 2022. He is a
Am I audible? Good morning, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizing committee for inviting me and thanks for the introduction. My topic is today's topic of TERP in the anesthetic considerations. As you know, TERP is the current gold standard surgical treatment for benign prostatic hyperplasia. It is the second most common procedure in men over 65 years of age. It affects 50% of the male at 60 years and 90% of the patients of above 85 years old. So it is most commonly performed in patients, in a patient who are elderly patient with cardiac, respiratory and renal disease. So it has got a unique complication because of the large amount of the fluid it is used for endoscopic resection. So today I am going to cover this topic in different headings like relevant anatomy, surgical technique, irrigation fluid, choice of anesthesia technique, potential intraoperative problems as well as postoperative problems. Coming to the anatomy, as you know, prostate is a walnut-shaped gland situated just below the neck of the bladder, measuring around 20 grams, and it has got two lateral lobes, anterior, posterior, and median lobe. Median lobe is the site for benign prostatic hyperplasia, and histologically it is divided into transitional zone, central zone, and peripheral zone. Transitional zone is site for again BPH, which encircles the prostatic urethra. It has got two capsules. One is the true capsule formed by the condensation of the prostatic tissue, and the second one is the false capsule, which is formed by the visceral layer of the pelvic fascia. Coming to the nerve supply, sympathetic supply is from T11 to L2 through inferior hypogastric plexus, and the parasympathetic supply is from S2 to S4 through pelvic branchic nerves. Arterial supply is by inferior vesical artery, middle rectal artery, and internal pudendal artery. Venous drainage is by vesical plexus, internal pudendal veins, and vertebral venous plexus. So, TERP procedure, it is performed in lithotomy position using a receptoscope through which a diathermy loop is passed. The prostatic tissue is resected in small strips under the direct vision using a diathermy loop. The bladder is continuously irrigated with fluid. At the end of the procedure, a 3-lumen catheter is passed, and irrigation is continued for up to 24 hours after the operation. The procedure usually takes 30 to 90 minutes. So, what are the characteristics features of the ideal irrigation fluid? It should be transparent for better visibility, and it should be isotonic, electrically inert so as to prevent dispersion of the diathermic current, and should be non-hemolytic, inexpensive, non-toxic, and easy to sterilize. What are the use of this irrigation fluid? It distributes the bladder and prostatic urethra, flushes blood and tissue debris, and improves the visibility. So there are various irrigation fluids like mannitol, sorbitol, glucose, urea, citol. Little water nowadays it is not used because of its extreme hypoosmolality. Commonly used one is glycine 1.5%, which is having 220 milliosmoles per kg. Slightly hypotonic. This is the commonly used one. Normal saline and single lactate can be used whenever they are using the bipolar quadrate. Coming to the preoperative consideration, as I earlier said, these are elderly patients with coexisting disease like cardiac disease, cardiovascular disease, abdominal disease changes, chronic COPD, diabetes mellitus. So occasionally these patients are dehydrated, depleted of essential electrolytes because of the long-standing diuretic therapy and restricted fluid intake. Long-standing urinary obstruction can cause UTI. Up to 30% of the TERP patients may have urinary tract infection preoperatively. So preoperative evaluation, thorough history and examination of all organ systems are very important. Routine investigation, special investigation like cardiac testing should be done in case of congestive heart failure, angina, and syncope. Coming to the preoperative preparation, optimization of the pre-existing comorbid conditions important. Consideration of ongoing drug therapy like antiplatelet and anticoagulant should be considered. Antibiotic prophylaxis in case of urinary tract infection. And arrangement of blood in case if you expect more blood loss. What is the choice of anesthesia? Obviously, it is the regional anesthesia is the choice of anesthesia for TURP. So advantages are it allows the monitoring of the meditation and early signs of TURP syndrome and bladder perforation. It promotes the peripheral vascularization by thereby reducing the circulatory overload. It reduces the blood loss, so requires fewer transfusion. Avoids effects of general anesthesia on pulmonary pathology. Good early post-operative anesthesia, reduce the incidence of DVT and pulmonary embolism, and of course it is low cost one. And general anesthesia is preferred when regional anesthesia is contraindicated. So what are the techniques of regional anesthesia? Subarachnoid block, epidural block, caudal block, and saddle block. Whenever we are giving spinal anesthesia, dermatomal level should be T10 so as to eliminate discomfort caused by the bladder distension. You should avoid above T9 so as to you can elicit the sign of capsular sign, that is the pain on perforation of the prostatic capsule. And advantages of subarachnoid block over epidural anesthesia like technically easier to perform, dense motor blockade, no central sparing, and low incidence of PTPH. Coming to the monitoring, ASA standard monitoring, and along with that, level of consciousness, blood loss, serum electrolytes, and EtCO2 is given. And intraoperative, what are the intraoperative considerations? One is lithotomy, TURP syndrome, bladder perforation, hypothermia, transient bacterial septicemia, and hemorrhage and coagulopathy. Coming to the lithotomy position, so care should be taken for both the lower limbs. They should be raised together and lowered together simultaneously so that we can prevent sudden fall in blood pressure and ensure proper padding at edges and angulation to prevent the nerve injury. So most important part of this topic is TURP syndrome. So TURP syndrome, it is because of the rapid absorption of large volume of irrigation fluid. So it can develop within 15 minutes after the resection or up to 24 hours post-operative period. Incidence is around 1 to 8%. So it is characterized by two changes. One is volume change and second one is the plasma solute change. Volume change can cause circulatory overload, water intoxication, and solute changes like hyponatremia, hypoosmolality, hyperglycemia, hyperammonemia, and hemolysis. And the factors which affect the amount and rate of fluid absorption are like size of the gland. If the gland size is more, so you can expect more absorption of the fluid. So it is absorbed at a rate of 25 ml per gram of prostate, and number and size of open vein sinuses. Hydrostatic pressure of the irrigation fluid, that depends on the height of the irrigation solution pole. Normally it should be kept around 2 feet, that is 60 centimeters. And duration of procedure, if it is more than 1 hour, so it is absorbed at a rate of 20 to 30 ml per minute. That means 1.8 to 2 liters of fluid is absorbed per hour. And if the integrity of the capsule is reached and the venous pressure is low, or if there is more respiratory of the prostate, then you can expect more amount of the fluid to be absorbed. So, what are the signs of water intoxication? It can cause cerebral edema. So, signs and symptoms of like somnolence, restlessness, seizure, coma, impotence, it can cause decerebrate posture, clonus, positive Baptist reflex. In eyes, it can cause papilledema, dilated and non-reactive pupils, and in EEG, it can cause low voltage. So, hyponatremia, again, it is a solute change, and it is because of the excessive absorption of the sodium pre-irrigation fluid. During TURP, serum sodium can fall by 3 to 10 milliequivalent per liter. Signs and symptoms of acute hyponatremia like nausea, vomiting, irritability, mental confusion, cardiovascular collapse, pulmonary edema, and seizure can develop. So depending on the serum sodium, the signs and symptoms develop. If the serum sodium level is 120 milliequivalent per liter, so you can expect like confusion, restlessness in the CNS changes, and hypotension, bradycardia is serious, and white fluorescent complex changes in ECG. If the serum sodium is 150 milliequivalent per liter, you can expect somnolence, nausea, cardiac depression, in ECG, bradycardia, white fluorescent complex, and elevated ventricular movement. If the serum sodium is 110 milliequivalent per liter, it can cause seizure, coma, congestive heart failure, ventricular tachycardia or fibrillation. So other complications like hyperglycemia. So glycine is a non-essential amino acid. It is an inhibitory neurotransmitter in spinal cord and retina. So it is metabolized in the liver by oxidative deamination to ammonia, glycerolic and oxalic acid. When absorbed in large amounts, it has got direct toxic effects on heart and retina. So manifestation of glycine toxicity like nausea, headache, malaise, weakness, visual disturbance, distraction, blindness can cause seizure and encephalopathy. Other complications like hyperammonemia. It is because of the conversion of the glycine to ammonia in case of arginine deficiency. It can cause nausea, vomiting and coma. Coming to the clinical features of TUR syndrome, so it affects various systems, neurologic. So in neurologic system, it can cause nausea, restlessness, visual disturbance, confusion, somnolence, seizure, coma and death. And cardiovascular like hypertension, tachycardia, pulmonary edema, serious collapse, hypotension and disease changes. Respiratory like tachypnea, oxygen desaturation, chest stroke breathing, and hematologic like DIC, renal like renal failure, metabolic like acidosis. How do you measure the fluid absorption? Like volume absorbed is equal to preoperative sodium divided by postoperative sodium into extracellular fluid minus extracellular fluid volume. Other methods like volumetric fluid balance, that is the difference between irrigation fluid used and volume recovered, and gravimetric, that is by measuring the body weight, and CVP monitoring. Small amount of ethanol can be added to the irrigation fluid, and serial measurement of the breath can be done, and by isotope method. How do you prevent it? Early diagnosis and prompt treatment is very important. Correction of the fluid in electrolyte abnormality preoperatively is also important. And continuous administration of conscious administration of IV fluids, and limitation of the hydrostatic pressure of irrigation fluid should be 60 centimeters, that is 2 feet. Restrict the duration of the surgery to less than 1 hour. We can use the bipolar resectoscope or vaporization method, that is Researcher, and by using local vasoconstrictor. How do you manage it? So management of TUR syndrome. That is, first thing is notify the surgeon and terminate the surgery, ensure the proper oxygenation, restrict the fluids. If pulmonary edema develops, intubate and start IPPV, bradycardia and hypotension, treat with atropine antagonist agents. If seizure develops, then diazepam, thiopentone, or even you can use the IV magnesium. Invasive monitoring like arterial and CP monitoring. Send the blood sample for electrolytes, arterial blood gas analysis. So it depends, management depends on the symptoms and serum sodium level. If the symptoms are mild and serum sodium level is more than 120 milliequivalent per liter, then you can do with the fluid restriction and the loop diuretic furosemide. And if the severe symptoms and the serum sodium is less than 120 milliequivalent per liter, we will treat with 3% sodium chloride IV at the rate of less than 100 ml per hour. So coming to other complications like bladder perforation, incidence is around 1%. It is caused by the trauma by surgical instrumentation or over detention of the bladder with the irrigation fluid. So it can cause extraperitoneal perforation and intraperitoneal perforation. Extraperitoneal perforation, the signs and symptoms like pain in the periumbilical, inguinal or suprapubic region. In intraperitoneal, you can expect generalized abdominal pain, shoulder tip pain and abnormal abdominal rigidity. Coming to other considerations like blood loss. In TUR surgery, it is difficult to quantify the blood loss because visual estimation of hemorrhage may be difficult due to dilation with the irrigation fluid. Usual warning signs like hypertension, tachycardia is masked by overhydration and effects of regional anesthesia. So blood loss can be estimated on the basis of resection time, that is 2 to 5 ml per minute approximate figure, and size of the prostate, that is 7 to 20 ml per gram, and number of open venous sinuses. Intraoperative blood transfusion should be based on the preoperative hemoglobin, duration and difficulty of the resection, and also clinical assessment of the patient condition. And coagulopathy. The causes of excessive bleeding are due to dilutional thrombocytopenia, DIC as a result of release of prostatic particles rich in thromboplastin into the blood, and local release of fibrinolytic agents like plasminogens and urokinase. Again, treatment is by administration of fresh frozen plasma, platelets and blood transfusion. Other complications like hypothermia. So continuous fluid irrigation can cause loss of temperature at the rate of 1 degree Celsius per hour. Elderly patients have reduced thermoregulatory capacity, so they are having more incidence of post-operative MI. Post-operative shivering can be associated with dislodgement of clot and promote the post-operative bleeding. So monitoring the body temperature is important. Measures like to warming blankets, heated irrigation solution, and we can use the warm eye fluids. Other complications like bacteremia and septicemia, incidence is around 6 to 7%. So the causes are like release of bacteria from prostatic tissue, preoperative indwelling urinary catheter, and preoperative UTI. The clinical features are like chills, fever, tachycardia. Treatment is given with the antibiotic and supportive care. So post-operative complications like hypothermia, hypotension, hemorrhage, septicemia, TERP syndrome, bladder spasm, fluid retention, deep vein thrombosis, post-operative cognitive impairment. To summarize, TERP is a procedure carried out on predominantly elderly population with a higher incidence of coexisting disease. A thorough preoperative assessment and evaluation is important in detecting high-risk patients and helping to choose our anesthetic technique. Subarachnoid block of T10 is an excellent anesthesia without notable hypotension. TERP syndrome is a rare but potentially a fatal complication of TERP. Early recognition and prompt treatment are essential. Blood loss is difficult to quantify and may be significant. Close attention should be given to the patient's clinical state, and the communication with the surgeon are vital. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a comprehensive and excellent talk.